Good evening.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, let's go to Facebook. Boom, boom, boom.
Hey, can you tag people? Can you tag everybody on?
I don't have the people to tag them personally on the page because I don't know if they're followed on the page. So I'm not totally sure. I haven't clicked the go live button yet, but we have a couple of minutes to kind of get ourselves together, get our last minute comments out because there's a 10-second delay. And then I will be on Facebook. Actually, she just followed the show, so I might be able to tag her. So I'll check when I let her rip.
Let me see what I can do. Let me see what's going on here. See if I can tag myself.
Okay. I haven't been able to tag you all on the page though.
All right, let's get to getting.
All right. I'm about to let it rip. Go live. Bam. Hit.
We on?
Yep, we are live one more again, brother.
All right, so we're right back at you with another episode of In Brotherly Love. And tonight's gonna be a little different. Usually I have my high energy and my suppressant with me, but I'm gonna calm down tonight and address this subject with the reverence and seriousness that it deserves. We're gonna be talking about something that has been trending in the African-American community for the last couple of months, really, not just weeks, but there's been some high-profile events that have occurred with high-profile individuals that we're going to talk about. My name is Jay Wendell Gordon. I'm the Warrior Lawyer. I'm a dad, HBCU grad, and from the DMV, and I got my brothers with me. Morgan State University, that is, when it comes to HBCU, the baddest, the boldest, and you know this. And these two here, I got one at a basketball game and the other one on the job, doing what he's supposed to do. And I appreciate that.
You see that?
You know what I mean? I always love it when we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, when we're supposed to be doing it. And I'm sure there's a counter argument to that, but who's next?
Go ahead, Jeff. That's you. You normally number two.
He ain't even paying attention.
He ain't even paying attention right now. Lord have mercy. Lord.
I'm gonna jump in right now. I got to break into action. My name is Jeff Gordon. I'm an HBCU grad. I'm a father. I'm a son. I'm a dad. And I'm a brother to these two kings right here. We're happy to be back at you one more time. We got an excellent show for y'all tonight. Y'all have to forgive me. I'm on daddy duty as usual. All right, turn it over to you, Jason.
Hey, what's going on out there? This is Jason S. The Voice Gordon coming to you live. I am an HBCU grad, a graduate of the best HBCU in this continental United States, home of your MVP, Kamala Harris, none other than the Howard University. Again, I'm an HBCU grad. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I am an uncle. I am a brother to these two gentlemen right here. And we're going to talk about some serious stuff tonight because in the Black community, there's stigmas on mental health within our community. And tonight, we're going to do our job tonight to attempt to dispel some of those rumors with you all. And we've got some great guests on with us tonight. We have Lisa Daughtrey, who is a mental health advocate. And we also have a licensed therapist, Ms. Nicosia Davis, on as well. So I'm going to throw it over to, Nicosia first. And then we're going to let Ms. Daughtrey come on and she's going to give you all her story because it's very profound. So we want you all to hear that.
So I am Nicosia Davis. Jason, I do have to say I graduated from 3 of the best HBCUs, from undergrad to both of my masters, North Carolina Central, the Virginia State University, and the Alabama A&M University.
They got a good market, man.
I am a licensed clinical social work associate, soon to be fully licensed in the state of North Carolina and Alabama. I have been for going on 15 years now. I have also been a patient in this career field for off and on of 10 years. So I have a unique approach because I've been a client of a therapist and a psychiatrist as well as a therapist myself. So I look very much forward to the ongoing conversation addressing mental health stigma, destigmatizing mental health care, especially for the African American community.
All right. And Lisa, glad to see you. Thank you for
So,
showing up on the show, showing up and giving us your story, which is a very compelling one, as much as it is one about your strength, your courage to continue to advocate for these issues and your resilience. So phenomenally, tell us what's going on in your life.
so let's start off that I'm a graduate of HBCU, Norfolk State University. Behold the green and gold. But
Oh,
can't
heck
go
no.
He heard that.
Yeah. But anyway, 10 this year would be 10 years. My son died by suicide, actually Memorial Weekend. So what encouraged me to become a mental health advocate was basically him. That was, I mean, was like the fire, the fuel that caused me. But I started off as board of director for American Foundation Suicide Prevention for the DC chapter. Initiated a pilot for his school, which is TC Williams, and they basically launched a program to for not just the high school, but basically for the whole pre-K to high school, as far as initiating this program, and started with them. Basically, I left American Foundation Suicide Prevention because I felt like there was a dire need for the Afro-American community. As I said on a retreat, you know, I'm your face as far as Afro-Americans for suicide prevention. However, on brochures, on material, on commercial, you don't see us. You don't see that diversity. And there's a percentage as far as men and boys, you know, they're like second as far as the high suicide rate overall. And when I talk with individuals, it was just a dismay as far as Afro-American people not understanding it. Depression affects us too. It has no color, no demographics, no financial, you know, whatever status. You can be successful and still have struggles. I always tell people, no matter how successful you are, you have had some type of degree of depression. People always think when they think about depression, you know, you bipolar. Yes, there's mental health issues, but there's level of depressions, and I wish we could have that open dialogue. I'm glad that you guys have used this platform tonight to basically talk about mental health. I am saddened by Regina King losing her son because we have a common ground. Both of our sons had the same first and middle name.
Wow.
Me and her both had tattoos. Her son had tattoo. I had a tattoo as well. It was just for me because I knew what she was going through right at that point. Then to lose Chelsea, that's a peer for you, Jay. I mean, but it's
that really captured my attention too, that she was a peer, because we attorneys, that's not something that we normally do, even though it is a high stress occupation. You learn how to deal with it. And someone who was soaring at the heights that Chesley was, I still don't understand. I still can't fully. Jeff, what's up, boy? Come on, turn your camera off, man. I still can't fully comprehend, what happened there. And and that's why we really want.
Right. And I would say this because a lot of people are saying for her, she was so beautiful. Yes, she was. She was a beautiful spirit. I mean, smart, intelligent. She was an advocate. But people got to understand too, in those type of high stressful positions, you're dealing with a lot and you're carrying a lot on your shoulders. So I wish people would just stop saying why did this person do that? I mean, you can't question, especially like I said, everyone goes through struggles. You never know what a person is struggling with. I mean, and I probably could see that she probably empathized a lot with her social justice advocacy, you know?
I think that probably has an effect on a lot of people because, you know, as I've gotten older, and this is a full confession, I do experience anxiety now, whereas I've never experienced that before in my life. There are little things that can trigger me to experience some type of anxiety. It's just an interesting phenomenon for me because I didn't know what it was until we started talking about mental health. And then I started, oh, wait, that's, in fact, I had a case where my client had I had the same types of symptoms as he did. I was like, damn, I got the same thing. And I have those triggers. So this is a topic that's very close to me. And in honor of suicide prevention, I'm wearing my orange turtleneck. It's not mauve, Jason, okay? He needs to adjust the color in his computer screen. This is orange. And so, so that's what we're doing tonight. And, you know, not only have these high profile individuals suffered by way of suicide, but also it hit home most recently in two instances that I can think of. The first one is the Honorable Mayor Kevin Ward of Hyattsville, who traveled all the way to Virginia and apparently died of one gunshot wound. And he leaves an entire family behind. And then there was Robert Vacosa, who was a former Baltimore County police officer back in November. Not only did he kill himself and his girlfriend, but he also killed his two very young and beautiful daughters. So, you know, people want to make him out to be this evil monster instead of taking a look at what was really wrong with this gentleman, or what.
Can I say this? And what people don't understand, that even people in the law enforcement, there's about 13% that are dealing with mental health. And
I think
especially
it's more than that because some of them jokers.
Right.
Yes, more. It has moved closer to about 30%.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But in a nutshell, like, yeah, that's a very stressful job. And honestly, when I think about the Black community as a whole, not just even Black law enforcement, you know, oftentimes in the Black community, we'll hear just pray about it and go to God about it, and we just kind of just push mental health to the side. But my thing about even as a Christian man, it's okay to have Jesus and a therapist.
Exactly.
Because one of Jesus's names is a counselor, and as a counselor, when you look at it in the Bible, you can see that he counseled. You can see that he was more concerned with the mental health, even though sometimes it would come off as a clapback. Like the thing that pops into my head, just off the top of my head, is when when they brought him the woman at the well. And when they brought him the woman at the well that was caught in the act of adultery, you know, first he addressed the gentleman that brought her to him, and then he addressed her specific needs. And then when he addressed her specific spiritual and mental needs, he didn't condemn her, told her to sin no more, and to be on her way. Basically, he gave her gave her the assurance in knowing that in healing whatever was going on that mental side of her that caused her to get caught in that act. But we got to get rid of that stigma in the Black community and in the Black church. Just pray about it, because there's some people who need more help than just prayer.
Or the words, sometimes when I remember years ago, someone called, when you talk about mental health, they always say demons. And sometimes that could be that could be very negative for people.
Absolutely.
I'm guilty of it because I do it. I do it.
But can I say one thing about terms? We cannot use the word commit suicide. We have to say died by suicide, because saying commit means it's a criminal intent. And especially with people, when you say commit suicide, you're basically causing them to be shamed or guilty.
Mhm.
And it's a little bit more history about way
Wow.
back as far as commit suicide. So, but we need to stop saying commit suicide. It's die by suicide.
Died by
Okay.
suicide. That's
All
what
right.
we'll call it.
I,
Look,
I'll receive that.
Chelsea Christ, I think that caught America by surprise. And we were talking about how fabulous she appeared to be outwardly to the public. But inside, obviously, there were some struggles. And it made me wonder, what was the origin of these struggles? Who told this woman that she wasn't good enough, to the point that despite all of her achievements in the past, the only thing she could hear was the negativity? Where does that come from, and how do we move away from that? Nicosia.
So when we
Yeah.
start talking about people getting to a place of completing suicide, we have to first talk about what we call suicidal ideation or suicidal thoughts. And this comes from a bombardment of feeling incomplete, feeling in pain, and just wanting to not feel that pain anymore. And people always say, she was beautiful, he was a great person, he had so much to live for, she had all of these material things. And it makes everything sound good on the surface. But underneath it all, there was some depression going on. There was some anxiety about some things going on. It could even have been triggered or triggering to have some traumatic experiences behind it. And when we start talking about how do we address it, one of the things I tell people is stop telling other people you have it better than what someone else has it. Oh, other people have it worse than you. That doesn't matter. Because hearing that is very much cliche and it does not make anybody feel good.
So I want you to stay close to the mic.
Okay. Those words don't make people feel better, because my words looks different than your words. Your words looks worse than your brother's. So we have to remove those cliches out of our lexicon and our vocabulary and things that make people feel good. Without knowing health history, I can only assume from a professional standpoint that it was a long history of depression. And even having, if she was going to a psychotherapist, mental health counselor, clinical social worker, it was still there. And those are not necessarily things that we can always change.
So you mean that someone it's inevitable that they may ultimately
if those thoughts are there,
suicide?
a lot of times people say if they're thinking it, it's very
Now, Lisa,
like one thing I can honestly say there, and I mean, and this may be a revelation to my brothers, but I battled with depression. I actually did battle with depression at one point in time in my life. Actually, it was early in my life. It was during college, and if you can probably think back to the time, Jay Wendell, but you probably didn't know that I was battling with depression at that time. And that was after my freshman year at Howard and the whole debacle at the end of my freshman year, to where it was coming down on multiple fronts. I had to deal with the disappointment of not just my parents, but you all were disappointed in me as well. And actually, I can actually honestly say that I was sitting on the couch at home and I contemplated ending it all. And that's I was 18, almost 19 years old. And just to be more specific, I ended up on academic probation at the end of my freshman year. And I remember all of the discord in the house. I remember watching the disappointment of my family as a whole. And I remember laying on the couch and just thinking to myself, this should be, this disappointment can go away if I go away. Now, I can honestly say that it was an epiphany from God, because God saw me at my lowest point, and that's my relationship with God. And I'm not saying that everybody can do that. And I could hear God speaking clearly that I didn't create you for you to take yourself out. But that's not everybody's case. And I understood the bombardment of those feelings of disappointment. I understood I was at a low point, like when I was just kind of sitting up in my room in the house just by myself, because I didn't want to be around you all, because I felt like such a disappointment to the entire family. And honestly, at that particular moment, that was a God moment where that brought me out. And then I dealt with a little depression later on when I was unemployed. I addressed addressed those issues when I was in seminary, and I was taking a class called discipleship counseling. And in that class called discipleship counseling, one of the things we had to do was get counseled. And I was able to deal with those triggers, and I understood my triggers then. And those thoughts can bombard your mind, because if you think about it, what could lead a person to do that? Sometimes our biggest enemy is within me. And the enemy may not come from outside forces, but it deals with your own personal thoughts that you're dealing with and you're battling with inside of yourself. And if you don't talk those thoughts out with somebody else, you can, if you decide that you want to go into a hole and just be there inside of your thoughts, those thoughts can sometimes ferment. And when those thoughts begin to ferment, they can lead you to a place to where you contemplate suicide. You may even attempt suicide, and sometimes you can complete the act through death of suicide just by not getting those feelings out and talking with somebody, more specifically, talking with a professional to get these thoughts under control.
Nicosia, and thank you for sharing that, Jason, because wow, I didn't know that. But I heard somewhere that people who suffer from depression, they start to feel so low that death seems like an improvement of their circumstance.
Yes.
And they feel like that they would rather die than to sink any lower mentally or emotionally. Is there any truth to that?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And what
Absolutely.
we see is that there could be a million solutions on the table for the problem at hand, but they can't recognize the solution because of the pain that they are feeling so deep within them. It's kind of like putting on some glasses that have Vaseline and then walking outside and someone telling you the sky is blue. You're not going to see that blue sky. You're going to see a haze. And so what happens is, and it's a pit. It's literally a pit of despair. Is when they feel that, it's kind of like clawing at the surface, trying to get your head above water, and you don't ever feel like you're going to come out of it. And what ends up happening is you see people going through the motions, you see them, and you think they have come out of that depression, and then they complete the suicidal thought and die by suicide. We call that the surge, because at that point they have made a decision that no one can talk them out of.
So Lisa, what are some of the signs and symptoms that we should look for in our young men, and perhaps even our adult to middle-aged men?
Well, I'll say this, because when I was doing the pilot with the school, I had a lot of students who were cutters, and cutters, they cut themselves.
Self-inflicted.
And so, right. So one thing I'll say about this, and just to piggyback off of Miss Davis, is that what people need to understand, when a young person cut themselves, it's numbing the pain. It's basically making them forget, even for temporarily. But they're still are going to thinking rational as far as taking their life. I know, like for my son, when I go back, he was having stomach pains, and as tall as he was and loved to eat, I was just like, okay, it could be anything. So the nurse would call me and say, Miss Daughtrey, he's here in the nursing, and I'll be like, okay, I'll come by and get him. But I would take him to the emergency room, but it was like consistently, he was always having this issue with his stomach. And that's one thing. I mean, because now your body is being triggered. First it's the mind, but now the body is saying, hey, it's like waves. I'm having, the depression's really hitting me. So now, even if the person is eating or not eating, it's now affecting how, the body is functioning. They sleep a lot. Some people may gain weight, some people might lose weight, but sometimes you can tell, but then again, you cannot tell when people are depressed because they have this mask on. So you got to I would say, don't beat yourself up, but just sometimes what you got to do is just ask a person, how are they doing? I remember I said to somebody, I said, be consistent with asking someone, how are you doing? Tell me about your day. Because that's the only way they can open up and have a dialogue with you. So if by chance they say, hey, I've been thinking about something, or I want to share something with you, that will help them a little bit as far as to communicate with you and say, hey, I've been thinking some thoughts, or I'm just not feeling well. I just don't feel like I belong here. I just feel like I'm a burden. Because most of the time, their thoughts are irrational, in their mind, but to them, they're thinking rational as far as taking a life. And I would say this, I remember Pastor Granger, she said to me, and I'm just piggybacking off what you said, Ms. Davis, is, when it gets to the end, they already made an executive decision as far as to basically do the act, to take their lives. And sometimes if they're not successful, they're going to try again.
Yep.
Wow. And then there are folks like Jason who overcome depression, or at least as far as we know. How are you doing today, Jason? Shoot.
I am well. Again, like I said, it was through going through further counseling that I had to understand those particular triggers. Because one of the things that I didn't deal well with is I never really dealt well with disappointment, disappointing others. I didn't deal well with disappointing myself or receiving disappointment. And the thing is that you have to get to a place to where you're open to talking about those things. And going to what Lisa was saying, like when you ask a person how they're doing, that creates a habit of letting a person know you care. Because truly, when they're in a place, when you're in a dark place, you feel as though no one cares. No one cares what you're going through. Only person who cares about what I'm going through is me. And when you start to see that there are other people who genuinely care about what it is that you're going through, that'll make you more open to expressing those things and to come out of, as Nicosia said, the pit of despair. Because one of the things, and I'm drawing on what I learned in that class, and it was a method, I called it shrug, but it's sustaining, healing, reconciling, and guiding. And sustaining is basically going into the cave with them, not necessarily going in there to bring them out, but you're just going in there and you're sitting with them. Because if you go in there and sit with them, they'll get to a place to where they're ready to be healed. And heal means they're coming out of that cave. And one of the biggest things, like I said, is just talking to somebody, knowing that somebody else cares. And in knowing that somebody else cares, that'll give you the ability to open up and to come out of that cave. But if nobody ever goes into that cave with them, then they're sitting in that cave by themselves in the dark.
Yeah.
And if you're sitting by yourself in the dark, a lot of stuff, bad stuff happens in the dark. So the biggest thing was, like I said, just talking to somebody, then understanding, having somebody point out my triggers, because I couldn't point it out myself. I didn't know that that was a trigger. I didn't know that disappointment was such a trigger for me. But I had to come and learn that about myself. And even now, I just learned how to, from that particular class and learning those and receiving those tools, I learned that if ever I'm in a dark place, I know that I need to talk to somebody. So there are friends that I do talk to. Honestly, there are times when we've talked, when we have our brocation and we're just having those deep conversations. Those are ways of me coming out of some dark places sometimes, because that's why, that's one of the reasons why I love the brocation so much, because it gives me ability to converse with my brothers and to hear, from men that have been in a place, and it may not have been a dark place for you, but it was a dark place for me, but just to hear how you guys came out of it. So, in just learning more about my mental through counseling, those things actually enable me to not stay in those dark places as long as I was at that particular point my freshman year.
So they say if you just rearrange the words in depression, you'll find I pressed on. And so, Jason, you would be an example of someone who was able to press on. But many times, not many times, but sometimes people can't make it out. And I always say that having a mental illness or mental health challenges is not a sign of weakness. I think it's a sign of being strong for too long. And so you need some help from time to time to get over that hump. And I guess, Nicosia, the successes, what is the success rate of coming out of deep depressions where you're in a funk, you don't want to get out of bed, that type of thing?
So we first have to understand what depression is. So you have chronic depression. Those are people who live with daily depression every single day. Those are the people that are on medication to control the chemical reactions, the chemistry, the biochemistry of depression. And then you have essentially what we call situational depression that comes on because life happens, right? When we're talking about situational depression, that's when you have to have someone who you can talk to about the solution to the problem that's there. The chronic depression, that is when the therapist is there to keep you going some days, where I do safety plans for someone who is telling me they have suicide. That's when more resources would come in to say, this person is expressing suicidal ideation. Here are phone numbers. Call me if you need me. I'll meet you at the hospital. Or your situational depression is literally helping guide someone to get to their solution. I'm what you call a solution-focused therapist. You come to me with your problem. We're gonna work through it so that you can get to your solution. And it goes back to all having a space where you feel safe enough to have those conversations. While I was working in the prison, one of the most profound things I heard from my male population, which was predominantly Black, was in the prison was the first time they felt safe talking to a therapist.
Wow. In the prison.
In the prison.
And that is pretty deep. Lisa, you've had to deal with the loss of your only child, I believe.
Yeah.
How do you cope with such a profound loss? How do you bring yourself back to, 0.5 or zero? Can you get back to zero? Do you ever get back to the status quo, or will the pain reside within you for the rest of your days?
So I started off, and I'll tell you what happened. I had a dear girlfriend who was just watching me, and like you said, you always have your support, but I say my tribe. And I remember during the service, she pulled me over, not once, but twice. And she said, I just want to give you the information for my therapist. And I was like, okay. And I was just like, because I'm dealing with so much. I'm dealing with his high school friends, just trying to make sure they're okay and whatever. And I remember I was running in the park thinking I was going to get back to my regular, routine. And was running with somebody and they were just was talking about children, and she asked about if I had a child. And anxiety attack. I had to stop in my tracks, and I started going to a therapist. I worked for a great consulting firm, which, they was like, okay, what do you want us to do? So it's like, sometimes I was going to the therapist twice a week, or, depending on availability. But that was where I started. And even though I'm private, I don't discuss a lot as far as with people out publicly, back then. But going to the therapist was so therapeutic for me. And then my therapist asked me, what else that you can do for yourself as far as to help you with the healing process. So I'll tell you, traveling. I was traveling a lot, like literally walking to my office with a suitcase. Everybody knew, Grace, she's ready to go somewhere. But I did that for a period of time. And then it's like just basically this grassroots as far as dealing with mental health and helping people. That's been therapeutic for me as well. Have I gone to the rabbit hole? No. I mean, I remember in the beginning, things would trigger me. Seeing a kid on a skateboard, I would just be like, okay, that remind me of my son. I couldn't watch certain movies where, people were hung. Just I would literally just start flipping a switch. But being consistent with going to a therapist, and one thing about my therapist would ask me and was about my faith. I never questioned God as far as why me, why did this have to happen to me? Um, I just basically just asked God, what is it that you want me to do with this? Because, you know, I basically lost my child, but it was what turned out is to find out what a great person he was through his friends, through the community, the school and everything. So it was just like, wow, he was a big brother to a lot of people. So another thing is people who are going through depression, he was carrying on not just his own, what he was dealing with, he was carrying on everybody's, because his friends were telling me, oh, he was helping us out. He was helping me out. He stopped a fight. He was pulling us together. And I was just like, wow, he was carrying on so many people's pain besides his own, So therapy. And I would say this, people would say, oh, I tried therapy. I didn't like my therapist. Look for another one.
Exactly.
Stop. Be consistent with that. Look, try to find a therapist that is going to work for you. Find someone that is your color. I remember years before anything, I was stressed about work and I went to a white therapist. She said something and I was like, no, I can't. I'm not going back to her. I need to find someone, my color, because what she just made a statement, I was like, that's not true. And I mean, I was thinking logically, but I was like, you're young and you're not my color. So you don't even understand what I'm dealing with right now. And I was like, I need to find somebody who's either a black male or black female therapist. So just as we being consistent, ask the person, are we okay? Be consistent. If you're not happy with the therapist you got, find another one.
I like what you said, Lisa, because I am a fan of blue water therapy. Um, I like traveling and being by some. It's got to be blue water. Like it can't be Ocean City water. It's got to be at the worst. It's got to be
You
Miami.
don't like that toilet water?
No, sir. It's got at worst. It's Miami. You know what I'm saying? But blue water therapy, it definitely it changes my mood. Um, I just kind of like when we were going through COVID, and there are a lot of people that were suffering and that are still currently suffering as a result of COVID. Like a lot of people are trapped in the house and they're left to their own devices. And I'm not even gonna lie to you. As soon as they said the vaccine was ready, I was like, give me my 2 shots so I can get about this country, yo. And if you notice, like y'all probably did notice, like after I got fully vaccinated, the first place I went to was Antigua, because it was like I need some blue water in my life because I have now gone an entire year with no blue water, and traveling, that definitely helps. Seeing different places, experiencing different cultures, honestly, it's experiencing so much of what God created, experiencing so much about life, that there's so much to live for. There's so much to do in this life. Is definitely something that definitely continues to help bring me out of funks. Because I periodically get into funks ever since that time? Yes, I get into funks, but I can honestly say, just like Lisa, pack my bag and get me somewhere with something blue, some blue water, and I ain't talking about a pool. I need to see some blue, high cholesterol, hypertension, salted water, to just make me feel better and to recharge my battery to get back to at least ground zero.
That's good. I don't know what I do. I'll sleep it off. When I have my anxiety, I'll sleep it off. If I have a bad, I'll tell you what triggered me recently: the whole Marilyn Mosby debacle, and Kenneth Ravenel, who's a high-profile attorney here in Baltimore. Both of these two folks were friends of mine. I guess I can say I was closer to Kenneth because we had tried a case together, and then I was Maryland. But just to see the onslaught of attacks against these people who actually fought for African Americans, you compound that with what you see in the news about African Americans taking losses here. Ahmaud Arbery, even though he got justice in the end, he's still not here. George Floyd, the pandemic, which many people lost their lives. It's a lot going on. In fact, to be mentally and emotionally healthy during these times is remarkable in and of itself, if you really want to be honest with yourself, because there's so much going on, which triggers things to occur in your life. So when all those things hit at the same time, and then you have your own personal issues and then your professional issues that you're dealing with, yeah, it does take a toll on you. So, but what has been the best medication for me is just sleep. I just have to go. I'm a recluse. I'm a Cancer, so I'll recoil. I'll reclude to my shell, and I'll go in, sleep it off. The next day, I'm back up and running. But the blue water therapy is good. I guess the slumber therapy or nocturnal therapy, whatever you want to call it, is good for me. And I guess people have their own ways of dealing with things, but when those things don't work, ladies and gentlemen, please consult with a therapist. There is nothing wrong with it. Therapy works wonders. It'll help you figure some things out. You might even learn something new about yourself that you really didn't know. It's been buried under the layers and layers of gook and muck that you use to try to hide, what's deep down inside. So if you don't get anything else out of this show, get you a good therapist and understand when you need one. It's not normal to feel that pain in your gut. That's not a normal feeling. And when you do feel it, don't ignore it. If you recognize it for what it is and monitor it to ensure that it doesn't intensify. Because if it does and you can't get out of it, if you find yourself unable to get out of the bed in the morning, that's a problem. And so that was the biggest symptom that I see in a lot of people. They won't get out of the bed. Like this person's usually getting up at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturdays, but they stand in the bed at 2 and 3 o'clock. There's something going on there. So, but in terms of all the nuances of the symptoms, I don't recognize. I didn't know Jason was going through what he was going through. We miss a lot.
And to be honest with you, it's just being honest. You know what I'm saying? Like it's good that when things get bad for you and you know to recoil back into your shell, as you said. Um, and the, and I'm glad to hear that it seems from your description, it seems to only last for a day.
Mm-hmm.
The depression though is over a period of time, and over a period of time
I
isn't a
have
long period
anxiety
of time.
disorder.
You know what I'm saying? Like that long period, that level of depression is like if you've sustained those thoughts for longer than a week.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, because I teach health, I've taught health. You know, they say 2 weeks, but I think if it sustains longer than 1 week, it might be time for you to seek out professional help. But I was going to say, like, as a black man and as a black man in America, we've become predisposed, or we become not predisposed, but we become programmed to not let these feelings out.
Yeah,
We become
because it comes.
programmed. Yeah, we become programmed to do those things, and
That's true
a
because
lot of and if you think about the stress of being just a black man in America, and carrying the burdens of your ancestors and things of that nature, that is a heavy load to carry by yourself, and that's a heavy load to carry by yourself internally. So like you were saying, Jay Wendell, it is vital that if you're ever in those predicaments, even if it's for a week, you should seek out professional help, because you don't want these things to become sustained longer than 1 week. Because if they become sustained longer than 1 week, then you go into that pit of despair. And once you're in that pit, in that cave, um, it's hard to come out of that cave by yourself.
I kind of wish Jeff was able to participate because I would really like to hear what his thoughts are on this particular subject. As a black man myself, and you all as well, and I know I'm speaking for you, we go through a series of microaggressions that we have to tend to every day. Black women do the same thing, but it's a black man.
Microaggressions that you don't
It's a
react
black
to.
man
That
show.
you don't,
So,
that's the key.
yeah.
That's the
And
key,
so-
that you
and
don't
so-
react
and-
to.
don't sometimes you don't react to, sometimes you do, but at the same
And even
time,
when you do, you can't react the way you need to or the way you want to. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like,
some people, but it, like for instance, after a while I'm going to react. Like there have been things that have happened to me in the past, even in the courtroom, but after a while it gets to a point where you get tired of it and you're gonna address it. And but many people can't do that. If I haven't been practicing law as long as I've been doing it and haven't had the experience to understand that no, we're not going to do this today, and you're not going to do this to me, and we're going to address it. But in addressing it is very risky too, because you're fighting for somebody else, so you don't want to get caught up on your own personal issues because this person may be held in the balance. And sometimes it becomes a situation where you could possibly crash and burn. So I guess you're right, Nicosia. In certain instances, you can't address it how you want to. But there's, at least in my situation, there's always a break. There's always another day. I will stop by somebody's chambers and sit down and address it with them in that way. And I've done that on multiple occasions.
and
So,
how I
I know
explain it, especially to Black men,
mhm.
how they manage emotions. We're kind of like soda bottles. What happens when you shake up a soda bottle?
It combust.
If you open it too soon, it becomes a mess. It explodes and it ruins everything around you.
A pressure
Wow.
vessel.
Yeah. Wow.
Pressure vessel.
Can I add this? So prior to the pandemic, I used to do per year, so like a workshop, a man's cave workshop, just exclusively for men. And it was very therapeutic for the brothers because they can talk about the mental health, the physical, as far as their mental, physical, and the financial wealth. But I mean, now because of what the pandemic, can we hold each other accountable where, not just saying us, but just for men, can men just hold each other accountable where check in, I mean, do some type of check in with each other. I mean, because sometimes it's hard for, like you said, it's hard for a brother to open up. But when you're with your own peers and you guys just letting it go, I mean, I think that need to just incorporate that. I mean, I know everything's done virtual now. I mean, but still, you can still do things by phone call. But I really think for men, you are your tribes. You know what triggers you. You know what you have to deal with on a daily basis. I mean, us as Black women and men, we're dealing with a lot as far as with the society, but be accountable where you can get some brothers that can hold you down and you basically be like, look, this is what's going on. And I mean, I just, I understand. I understand what Black men go through. Trust me.
But now, just to jump in a little bit, and y'all have to excuse the image, but I know when we're young and when we're growing up, we're really taught to, and I saw this earlier. They say we're taught to break things down into small problems, just deal with it, and there's not a whole lot of sitting back and talking and dwelling on it. And I know for me, I often find that I may not, like I heard Jay Wendell say, he would go to sleep. I don't even think I would go to sleep. I think I would just kind of put it in the back of my mind and say, either I'll deal with it later or I'm not going to deal with it at all. And, just kind of take the lump. And then after a while, you get tired of taking lumps and then you strike out. So I don't, we're taught to just, hey, take it, move on. If it's a wall, you run through it. But everything seems to be a wall at a certain point in time. It's like you have to figure out when to strike out and when to not. And when just talking about it doesn't seem to resolve the issue, because we're just talking about the problem. There's not a solution. And I heard Nicosia say she was a solution person. And I think that's great if we actually come up with a solution, but just talking and talking seems to be tough. And I'm just saying this for me, I would rather see something happen, but I don't know what could happen with my mental issue.
See, so like when Lisa was talking about just brothers getting together, we have the brocation and brisket.
The brocation and brisket.
Brocation and
Okay,
brisket.
it's got a new twist on it now. I like it.
Hey man, eating so much of that beef, man, is causing me problems, man. Shit. Ain't no young man anymore, man.
Hey, but honestly, like those times when we get together.
No homo.
Yeah, pause.
You did that. You did it. Yeah, you did it.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like brocation and brisket. Like I'll throw a brisket on and y'all will come over because y'all will see it. And those end up being therapy sessions. When we get to talking and we start to, and actually, Jeff, whether you know it or not, you're actually finding solutions even when we talk over brocation and brisket, because honestly, I think that you do receive solutions. I don't think you recognize that those turned into counseling sessions, but they are, because I listen to you express your thoughts. And in expressing your thoughts, I'll walk into the cave with you. But that's also because of it's training that I received. And I mean, honestly, the good thing is it actually makes me feel good to hear that you've never gotten to that place. But all of those things, like in getting together, like when we get together, like when we talk about, we need a brocation. To me, those are like our brocations are counseling sessions. When we sit around and we'll crush some Basil Hayden and we'll just start talking. Or we'll go out and we'll talk, or we'll go out and party for a whole weekend. Those are actually mental health sessions, even though you may not have known that they are. Those are actually counseling sessions that we go through. Those are chances for you to get out what's troubling you, and y'all get them out, and Jay Wendell too. And we just kind of just talk about those things. And even though it's in a lighthearted, laughing and joking manner,
joking, and inebriated.
But inebriated takes down that wall. You know what I'm saying? And now your wall is now down to now you can express like, these are my thoughts, and those are now you'll understand where I'm coming from when I go on the brocation. Like, it's therapy for me. Like, you guys are therapy for me, because like you said, you look for solutions. That's where we are as men. We're solution based. And y'all give me solutions to take back to things that are bothering me. Y'all encourage me to continue to press on. Like, I even think about like this certification that I'm pursuing right now. Y'all pushed me for that. Uh, Jeff, whether you know it or not, you know, the fact that you talked to Jay Wendell and I, and we were all dual degree holders, that pushed you to move
Oh,
forward, you
I
know.
know that pushed me. I wasn't gonna have y'all talk about me.
I never
But
said nothing about you.
we never
It was
said anything
coming.
about
It
you.
was coming.
Right.
In fact, I told you you were
Hey,
overeducated.
you know,
because
you want to talk. You
nobody
want to talk
all the
about.
degrees.
You want to talk about passive something with another. That they would be like, oh yeah, we could say we all. Oh no, we not all because Jeff, you only have one.
Jason said that.
You
But,
talking
I
about
just
being
want to jump
passive?
in.
but in these therapy sessions, Nicosia, they be trying to call people crazy. In these so-called provocation, it's not unusual for somebody to say, you crazy.
Oh, so you know what? Then we do have to watch our verbiage. You know what I'm saying? We don't need to use
Why?
those types of words. I mean, but
Language
well,
matters.
well, better yet, you have to be very selective on who you say that to. So, like, granted, we know that you can handle it, and Jay Wendell, we know you can handle it, and you know that I can handle it, so forth and so on. So it's not to a place to where it will cause us to go deeper, but it also involves you it also involves you understanding. You got to know your personnel. As you know, the coach in me says, know your personnel. And you can't necessarily use that crazy word around just about around everybody, because some people may take it to a place to where they may actually retreat into a shell, and they may not seek the help that they're looking for.
And what I wanted to jump in on was about 3 or 4, maybe 5 years ago, um, someone started something called barbershop therapy,
Mhm.
where it's men, mainly Black men, in your regular old corner store, corner barbershop with the boys, and they bring in a Black male therapist, and literally it turns into a group therapy session.
Mhm.
And that was possibly one of the best movements that they could have created. I cannot right now recall who started that movement, but I was so happy to see it. Because it gave Black men an acceptable space to say, I'm not okay, which is not something that the Black community has ever welcomed, was a Black man saying, I'm not okay.
Well, I think that things have changed now. If you can get somebody who's close to you to say they're not okay, we're going to listen. In fact, we just had a crisis this week with a family member that, you know, many of us, at least Jeff and I, got phone calls. I think I talked from like 10 to like 2 in the morning. I think Jeff made his phone call at 2 in
I
the
went
morning.
from two to 5.
And so we all wrap around, and it involved a legal issue that because it was family, I couldn't participate in, but we paid his legal fees, you know, and that blessed him, you know what I mean? And so when we hear of a problem, we immediately go into problem solving mode, and we do circle the wagon to try to protect, you know, those we love, because I just feel like, you know, that's what family is supposed to do. And quite frankly, men are getting fraternity brothers and everybody else, friends, even my clients who become friendly with me will have conversations. They'll call me and ask me my opinion on some legal issue, and then we'll ultimately start talking about life issues. So sometimes I feel that I'm not just an attorney at law, but I'm also an attorney at life, where I have to give this type of information and advice to younger men, older men, just men in general. And I think they bode well by it. They appreciate it. So yeah.
Hey, that's not bad, counselor.
But you know, I do what I can do when I can do it.
Man,
But
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just saying we're just about at that time where we wrap things up. And I do want to thank you, Lisa Daughtrey, for being on the show and sharing your thoughts with us. I knew you were coming with the treasure trove of information. Akasha, when I heard that you were coming, I was excited just as well, because I knew that's your profession. So I knew you were going to drop some gems on us. And so with that said, I think this is going to really conclude our episode of In Brotherly Love. Lisa, I'm going to throw it to you to give us some closing words, and then we're going to close out the entire show. We're going to go Lisa, Nicosia, Did I say that right?
You
Nicosia.
said it
Yes.
right. You said it right.
And then
And look, and I said it wrong at the beginning. I was like, Nicosia.
we'll figure out what order we're going to go in. But I do want to hear your final thoughts on suicide, suicide prevention, whatever you want to tell the people.
Okay, so I guess when people think about suicide or people with suicide thoughts, just remember that we're not going to catch everything, every behavior or some changes with them. And like I said, there's a mask sometimes people will present to you just because they feel like they're going to be a burden. But for those who are having those mental health problems where they are struggling, and you can basically physically see it and then verbally ask them if they're okay, and then they will tell you. I will always say, don't think you be the person to solve it for them. Help them go get the support. Another thing is when we talk about death with cancer and heart disease, but not death when associated with mental health. Some people do die from it, but suicide is like a massive heart attack of the brain.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. That was well stated.
Mm-hmm.
Well stated.
So I will leave you guys and the watchers with there are resources. In the past 10 years, there has been so much funding poured into organizations to get what we call mobile crisis. Mobile
Right.
crisis will come to you, they will sit, they will talk to you, they will say, if you want to go to the hospital, I will take you to the hospital. Um, they will provide linkage resources so that you have aftercare. The National Suicide Hotline,
Mm-hmm.
local, you can even walk into a regular hospital emergency room and say, hey, I'm not feeling like I want to stay alive. They will
Mm-hmm.
happily take you to a back
Yes.
room and you will get what we call a 72-hour hold, get
Mm-hmm.
assessed, and if they need to keep you longer, they will keep you longer. If they need to medicate you, they will medicate you. When it's time to discharge you, they will send you home with a comprehensive plan of care in order to keep you safe and to get you mentally well. Do not hesitate to reach out to your friends, your church, your sorority, your fraternity, and go, I can't do this alone. I
Mm-hmm.
would prefer to hear someone say, I can't do this alone. A sorority sister can come in my inbox and say, I can't do this alone, before I hear that you completed the thoughts that you had that you could not come out of.
Hmm.
And I get very emotional about it because it is something close to me. It's something I have experienced. So you're not alone. You're never alone. Even if the voice in your head is telling you that you are not. Always reach out for help.
And so with that said, I'd like to kind of end as I give my closing thoughts. Uh, Something came to mind, which goes a little something like this. Being loved by someone deeply gives you strength. Loving someone deeply gives you courage. I want to leave this with all of our folks. Have the courage to love someone deeply. Don't be so fast to ask them uh, what's wrong with you. Sometimes you have to ask them what happened. And that way you get people to talk. You get people to sometimes commiserate with you and sometimes just, be that listening ear for someone to prevent them from going into the pit of despair. And Jason, I'll throw it to you. And Jeff, you'll have the last word.
This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. It's near and dear to my heart because of the stigma that is placed on the Black community, Black men specifically. That you just need to get over it, and sometimes as Black men we can't just get over it by ourselves. We're preconditioned to think that we can do it on our own, and truth be told, sometimes you can. There are also those times when you cannot. And in those times when you cannot, don't be afraid to reach out to someone just to say, hey, I'm not okay. I'm not doing fine. There's a lot on my mind, because to be a black man in America is to have a lot on your mind constantly. But take seriously your mental health, and take seriously the mental health of those around you. Like when you're talking to your friends, when you're talking to your brothers, your cousins, your uncles, your fathers, um, go to them with genuine care and concern, because we can feel that. And when we feel that, we'll feel open enough to be vulnerable, to let you in on the innermost thoughts that are going on. Please, to those of you all that are Christian males, it's okay to have Jesus and a therapist. To those of you all that believe in another God, it's okay to have Allah and a therapist. It's okay to have whatever your belief is in your creator and a therapist. There's nothing wrong with seeking therapy, because therapy could be just what you need to get back to ground zero. So, uh, in brotherly love, it's not just a title, but there is brotherly love between us, and understand that these fellowships that I have with my brothers, they aren't just fun kick it times all the time. We do have fun kick it times. Don't get me wrong. We have great times when we're together, but there are times when those turn into therapy sessions for me. Uh, whether they recognize it or not, there are times when there are therapy sessions for them. Uh, but don't be afraid to open up your heart and your mind to your fellow brother, because that is where we can help each other get back to ground zero. Come on, Jeff, ride us out, homeboy.
Before
Since
Jeff
you,
takes on, before Jeff goes forward, it sounds like you petitioning to your wife, man. It sounds like you making
No,
it.
Ray, it sounds like he trying to make
Please,
it
baby, baby,
legit.
please, we get therapy down there.
hey, stop
Oh,
snitching.
We
Hey.
really are going. We really going. It's therapy. I gotta go.
You making this
Snitches get
case, boy.
stitches.
I want
Snitches
him
get
to be my
stitches.
lawyer when I need some help. I want him to be my lawyer. That's my lawyer.
Snitches get
Hey
stitches.
Jay, that's the long game right there. That's the long game. That's long range planning right there.
It's on you,
And ladies, yep. I just like to add that, I'm fortunate enough to be able to sit down and talk, with my brothers, with close family members. One thing that I've learned is that when we have these conversations, man, we have to be courageous enough and okay with being honest about how we feel and what we feel. I know, we got to show that we're strong. And a lot of times, even when we let down our guard, we still have a level of security that's built in. But when we get into these situations, you really have to talk about what you feel and how you feel. If you mad, say you mad. If you want to hurt something, say you want to hurt something so people can know how to deal with that. It happens. It happens. There's situations that come up and you really don't know how you're going to respond to it, but you're not really in a good place to make that decision about how you're going to respond to it. You got to tell someone so that accountability partner can come in and say, hey, bro, okay, I get that you mad. Let's figure out another way to get this done. So we don't want you out here just walking around with these thoughts in your head without any way of honestly saying how you feel. Just be honest about how you feel. And that's going to take some courage, and that's going to take some discipline. But if you do it, you'll feel much better, because now you've gotten to the heart of the matter. You got to what's really on your heart and what's in the pit of your stomach. It can come out and it can be dealt with. But if you don't say anything, nobody can deal with it. So even though you're sitting in there with the counselor and you don't like what they said, that might not be your counselor. You need to find somebody else that you can actually speak your heart. And whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, you need to find that safe space to have that conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize again on daddy duty. This is in brotherly love, and we'll be right back at you next week.
Oh, real quick, to everybody that was in the comment section, we did see your comments, and we're sorry that we weren't able to get to your comments this particular episode, but we will be talking about Black mental awareness again. This won't be the last show on Black mental awareness in this season. But we do thank everybody that was participating online in the chat section. We see you. We acknowledge your chats. I just want to let you know that we are acknowledging your chats. We're thankful for everybody that participated. We're thankful for everybody that watched. Please share, share, share. Share on all of your timelines, share wherever. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, In Brotherly Love, on YouTube. We do have a YouTube channel where we'll also be reposting this episode. Please share the YouTube channel, all of those things. We thank you so much. We appreciate you. And as we always say, in three-part harmony, we'll be right back at you next week.
Next week. Thank you, Miss Davis, and
Thank you,
Miss
Ms.
Daughtrey.
Ms. Davis
Thank you
and
for
Ms.
having me.
Daughtrey. We appreciate both of you all.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.